steal like an artist and don't just copy other people's ideas, please, for the love of God.
It's like, are we the problem? It's like us with our artist alley content. I think we're the problem.
You could be doing everything right, and the economy is just like, sorry for your loss.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Creative Confessions, where we talk about all things artist alley, manufacturing products as an artist, and small business advice. I'm your host, Macy, and I'm the artist and designer behind Mualcaina, a small business focused on kawaii designs. The career path of an artist can be a very risky one, and especially so when the artist alley scene has become incredibly competitive, and the US economy being a bit on the edge. With an unpredictable path, it's even more so important to diversify your streams of income, just in case one of them can be a little bit unreliable. I'm excited to welcome our next guest who has diversified her streams of income. They're vending an artist alley, running a Patreon, managing a sticker production business, just to name a few, on top of being a fellow con vlogger. Without further ado, I'm excited to welcome Ashley, better known as Lay Spirit Designs. Hello. Thank you for joining
Hello.
us.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'd love to start out if you could share a little bit about yourself and how you started Lay Spirit Designs.
I am Ashley. I run Lay Spirit Designs, and I struggle sometimes to like condense what I do besides just selling my artwork, but it is starting to move from kind of a catch-all into a stationery business. So I used to do a lot of enamel pins, tote bags, lanyards, keychains, stuff like that, but I'm really narrowing it down into stickers, sticker books, washi tape, etc.
So before Lay Spirit Designs, what did you do prior to running your business?
I was the lead graphic designer for a local startup ad company. That lasted a couple of years. Everything else before that was retail. And I worked at a UPS store. So everything that I have done previously really kind of led me into this path of being a small business owner in the creative world, down to knowing how to do shipping and logistics and treat customers, have a customer voice and face, and all of that other stuff. And then, of course, the design stuff helps too.
Yeah, that's amazing. I didn't know that, but it's actually pretty cool that a lot of the like jobs that you had prior to this business pretty much directly apply to what you do now. And do you currently run your business full time?
100% full time. It's also really nice.
Congrats. And
Thanks.
as of now, are you doing everything yourself with creating the designs, fulfillment?
I am a one woman show. With the exception of at conventions, I refuse to do them alone. So you'll see either Ryan 99% of the time, or you'll see my best friend Chi the other 1% of the time.
No, I feel that because even though there are some cons or events that I think typically I could do solo, just having the comfort of like if something were to happen, having another person with you really helps, or even just
Hmm.
keeping you company too is a nice
Oh, yeah.
benefit.
And for me, like, I get so physically overwhelmed that there are some days that I'm like totally dead. I'm like, Ryan, you got to run the booth for like a couple hours so I can just veg out back here. And he's like, got it. And he knows everything. So it's really indispensable to have somebody who knows all of your product, knows how to talk to people, because he also has a retail job and he almost sells my stuff better than I do. So it's like, I don't want to have to do anything without him, but we can talk about this later. I also kind of want to try and start branching out by myself.
Since we're talking about Artist Alley, when did you first start doing conventions?
My very first convention was no, not January, March of 2017. So I am a little bit of a veteran. I've been around before the panini.
Since 2017, how many cons have you done?
I had to kind of look this up, and I'm kind of guesstimating because I'm really bad. I used to be really bad about taking pictures, advertising when I'd be in an event, but I think around 50. So not too many. Like, I know it feels less than what I expected, but the last couple of years I've done more. So I'm doing one a month or something like that. Like, I'll do a good handful spread throughout the year. Before the pandemic, it was like maybe 3 or 4 a year.
Was that pretty common, like for Artist Alley before, for people to not do as many conventions at the time?
It's hard to say because I wasn't as involved in the community outside of specifically SAC anime, which again we can touch on. It just seemed way more casual. Like, I don't know how many people were doing it full time before the pandemic. It's a whole different beast these days.
So out of all of those conventions of the 50 that you've done since then, which one would you say was your most successful?
There's a little bit of a tie, and I'm going to use this year to determine how this is going to work, because Usually it's sack anime, like hands down all the time sack anime. Every time I think that I have broken a record or anything, sack anime is like, no, you don't know anything yet. But last year we did Midsummer Scream for the first time, and that's a horror convention in Long Beach for anybody who doesn't know, versus Sac Anime, which is a Sacramento-based anime convention. And we blew our records out of the water for like a 2.5 day show. We're going to see how those go this year, especially with all of the new branding and all of that stuff.
I know we kind of touched upon Artist Alley prior to 2020, but since you've been vending in Artist Alley prior to that, when I feel like a lot of artists nowadays, or at least the ones that I know, seem to have started their business, how has the Artist Alley community or overall Artist Alley environment changed since when you first started vending?
I think it goes without saying it's way more competitive. It's almost ridiculous how many events when you go to apply, it's a bloodbath. I thought it was stressful back in the day when you had to get on the SAC Anime application website 5 minutes before, hope to God your internet speed is good enough, and you get a first come, first serve booth. Like, I feel like applying to every single event is that level of stress, whether you're waiting months to hear back from a juried show or waiting to hear back from Anime Pasadena. That being said, it's competitive because during the pandemic, so many people had time to hone their craft, really figure out what they're doing, blow up on social media. That's honestly how I got to go full time. They were on forums and in Discord groups and stuff, learning how to do what people are doing. And I think you and I can relate to this, that if you're putting out tips and tricks, that content goes viral so easily, and that's what people want. And it's like, I don't want to give away all of my secrets, but people like to see the secret. So it's kind of a give and take. Everybody's very helpful. That kind of adds to the competitiveness because everybody knows what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I remember when I first started vending, my first con was like January 2022. I think at the time, from what I remember, it was just you and Chris Kaiko who had like pretty consistent Artist Alley vlogs at the time. And I remember like that's the reason why I started my YouTube channel, was because I was frustrated by the lack of Artist Alley content. And there were a few like videos here and there of vlogs, but no one was ever as consistent as like you or Chris. That's also why I did my vlogs, because, you know, it was my first time. I kind of wanted to show people like, oh, this is like information that I wish I knew had I started this con. And compared to 2022, like now in 2024, there's a lot of like Artist Alley vloggers, which I think is pretty great because like if I want to know about like certain cons, there's so much information now. And I kind of understand why it's also like a lot easier now to get into, not like into Artist Alley, like it's harder now, but to get the interest in that. So you've recently updated your setup this year to be mostly self-serve. And in the past, from what I've seen in your vlogs, most of your products was kind of like menu style, for lack of a better term, while some was self-serve. What prompted the change?
It was actually Cloris, who I've never met in person. So hi, Cloris, if you're watching this.
Oh.
I saw one of her vlogs or one of her TikToks or something where she was saying that the self-serve style, even if people are stealing, like you're still going to be making more money with that system than having the menu style. And I noticed a lot, especially with SAC Anime, when we get a lot of people at the front of the booth in the middle of the day and we get really overwhelmed, that it's going to be easier if people can just like pick what they want, stand in line with their stuff. Because we would notice people like pointing out and they're waiting and I'm working on a transaction and then they'll leave. So I'm like, okay, well, if they have their stuff in a little basket, I got little pink baskets that match the booth, and they can stand there and wait. If there's two of us there, then we can do 2 transactions at once. I have had to make an alternative version of the new booth to fit smaller tables because some of our tables have been 6 foot. The 8-foot style, I can do the self-serve on everything. But with the 6-foot table, I do have the menu style pins and keychains, and then the stickers are self-serve, and then the sticker books. Regardless, you just have to tell me which one you want because I'm not going to put a bunch of sticker books out there. I have really liked both systems. I do prefer the self-serve because it gives us a lot of free space behind the booth. We're not bending over, having to dig through and like, oh, where'd you put this one? And then we're tracking our stuff too. So I have our inventory tracker that I have never done this before. And this is not, I want to do a barcode system eventually, but basically it has broken down by type of item, each item name, how many quantity I start with, Friday, Saturday, Sunday sales, end quantity, how many sold. So then I can go through at the end of the show, see what all I sold, if there's any indiscrepancies. Most of the time it's human error that we're marking in the wrong spot or we just forgot to mark it. And then I can see how many die cut stickers I sold, how many sticker sheets I sold, etc. And then total up approximately how many items I sold for the whole weekend. Mind blowing. Mind blowing. It's a little tricky to do that with the self serve because for like Sac Anime is the one big one we did with it in January. And there was probably like maybe one or two instances of sticky fingers, but compared to what we did for that weekend and the reception of the booth, totally worth it.
See, I kind of like your approach actually, where most of it is self-serve and then maybe like a few menu item because yeah, I also saw that video too with Cloris explaining like why self-serve like really serves her well. And I kind of want to do that too because there is the issue of like not enough space in the booth. Like in my case, I'm not gonna put like Ita bags outside. But like yeah,
Right.
like the smaller items like stickers or like maybe like some pins, like I probably wouldn't mind doing that. And like you said, like theft happens. And like for the most part, like most people have been like very trustworthy. There's just like a few instances of that. I would want to do that. Like there's I'm running out of space. Like I'm already like outgrowing a 6 foot table. I don't want to
Hmm.
because it can be very expensive to get like a 10 by 10 vendor booth.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe next year. That's next year's project for me.
I feel because of the way the booth is designed, I actually have less space to showcase product because we have two towers on the outside and it's decorative. So there's nothing on the front of those. So if I'm on an 8 foot table, literally 2 feet of that is just decorative. The inside, where you're window shopping, literally on windows, is where either the pegs will go or I will have the boards with them up on the rings. I've noticed that, especially for the keychains, the menu style works okay because if I have a double sided design, people can flip them. And if they're hanging on a thing already packaged, you can't see like, oh, this Mothman keychain has a butt on the other side. You just have to take my word for it. And I can fit more product on like a 1 foot square versus the pegs. It takes literally an extra foot to showcase what I have. Definitely the stickers, like people like to be able to pick it up and feel it and all that. And I thought having them on a menu board was good enough because they could still see the effect and touch them and stuff. But people like to pick them up and like, oh, I like that one instead. And, just feel them in their hands.
Would you say that your display would, I think, I'm pretty sure from what I remember, like the pegboards are like maybe within 1 to 1, or like I don't know if it was like longer than 1 by 1. But if you were to fly with it, I know you mostly do cons that are within driving distance, but would that work with your display as well if you have to fly?
One thing that I've been afraid of about flying to cons is being able to bring stuff. And especially if I go by myself, like I don't have an extra person to bring another suitcase. I would probably use the menu style just for the sake of weight when I'm flying. And then I can use that extra weight to bring more product. Because the box of pegs, it's about that big and there's 50 pegs in it and it's probably a good 10 pounds. But I guess it would depend on the situation. It's been a long time since I've flown to a con and I'm scared to do it again. I would have to put that to practice and see, well, maybe it was more worthwhile to do it this way.
It's always about weight, especially if you're soloing. It's like, can I carry that
Hmm.
myself? No. Is there anything you would do differently if you could start Artist Alley over again?
One thing I would do differently is try to keep as much of my production in-house or at least locally of some sort rather than outsourcing. And if I'm going to outsource, to do Kickstarter because I started out doing a lot of fan art and this year I have moved into all original characters. If I do fan art at all, it's going to be an exclusive sticker for an event. But I think starting to sprinkle my characters in at the beginning to really build more on their lore so that people had a reason to like them. I would also like to have focused more on online stuff and YouTube from the beginning. Like I am so sad that I do not have YouTube footage from the early days because it was so different and like my thought process was so different. So I wish that I was documenting from the start.
Yeah, it would have been nice to also see like your perspective and how Artist Alley was prior to that because again, I started like the Artist Alley scene kind of like 2020s. So I don't really know what it was like in like the late 2010s, but I also don't know if there's much content around that time either.
I don't.
Interesting,
I
but
think Chris is going to be the one. It's going to be his sole experience. I can't think of anybody else who was doing it. And Chris is the reason why I started too. I was like, that's cool. If I'm going to be doing this, I may as well make content. And it was during the pandemic. And literally my reasoning was, well, my grandparents don't get to see me. So now they can put YouTube on and they can see me.
oh, I love that. But it's interesting because you did bring up making sure you have production, I guess, like locally or in-house. What prompted that versus like outsourcing, since you said you'd only consider that for Kickstarters?
It was Patreon. So, and I'm going to be really candid because my patrons know what's going on and I'm working on revamping and all that stuff. But I started my pin club and then my merch box club 2022. I was like, okay, well, the sticker club via TikTok is growing okay. And if I got a Vogue Race collaboration with the pins. So I was like, okay, well, this can kickstart the pin club. And I figured it would have grown. By the time I stopped in December of 2023, I was like, I'm literally bleeding money producing all of this stuff. And these leftover things, I'm putting them immediately in the shop, bringing them to cons, and they're not selling. So it just kind of felt like a money pit, churning out products and designs that I'm not super happy with just to meet the deadline and paying the money to produce pins and keychains and in some cases tote bags and sticker books. It was a huge burden, literally, physically and emotionally and creatively and financially. So that kind of made me realize like, okay, I need to stop doing that. But then using the inventory tracker, I noticed, wow, my die cut stickers and my sticker sheets are selling way more than literally any of my other products. But like I could sell like 100 die cut stickers in a weekend versus like 10 pins. So I'm like, okay, the cost there, the math ain't mathin'. I need to focus my energy on something that I can produce here that's very low cost that people are still going to pay money for, maybe less per piece, but it'll add up because I do a 3 for 12 bundle. If I'm spending hundreds of dollars on pins and I'm selling like 5, that's kind of what prompted that. And that's where the focus is going. And that's why I'm moving towards stationery.
Yeah, because I remember, I think I watched your most recent video where it was like you were vlogging your entire day. And I remember you brought up
Mm-hmm.
that you were trying to get rid of like your lanyards. And to be honest, like I'm also trying to do that too. But I was like curious, like, oh, like you wanted to get rid of like your enamel pins and your lanyards. And I was like curious as to like why that was. So that explanation
Mm-hmm. It's the cost.
definitely adds
The
up.
other part of that explanation, at least for the lanyards, is the way they're set up on my booth is on one side, it's the $12 keychains. And then underneath is the patches and lanyards because they're all $12. You can mix and match 2 for 20. I want to use the height of that to display more stickers. I could do one $12 lanyard that I may sell one of, or I can have a whole bunch of stickers that people can buy 3 for 12. So it just makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely like considering your like display real estate is very important because yeah, I think my lanyards at the time when I first had them, like maybe like mid 2022, they were doing like decently well. And so I thought like, oh, I'll expand it to like different anime. So I have like currently it's like One Piece, Jujutsu Kaisen, Demon Slayer, Spy Family, and then Hunter x Hunter. I mean, the other one, they're cute and like they do sell, but it's always the One Piece and JJK. And at that point, it's like, okay, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm wasting some display real estate displaying the other 3 lanyards when it's just 2 of them that sell anyway. So it's like, okay, I need to try to get rid of those, but we'll figure that out. But I do want to share that Mualcaina is finally on Patreon. If you're not familiar with Patreon, it is a subscription service where you can support creators in exchange for additional exclusive content. In my case, if you want even more artist alley advice, sneak peeks of upcoming products, and more, you can get all of that on Patreon. So if you want more exclusive content or you just want to support this channel, feel free to check out my Patreon. It is down below in the description box. When we were talking about Artist Alley, what advice would you recommend people who want to get into Artist Alley? Like, what advice should they ignore?
I don't know if this is like something that people say or not, but like you really don't have to have any kind of online following to sell at artist alleys. Like I know there's some cons that are juried that may look at your social media numbers. I feel like those are few and far between, but I know some incredible artists literally like could work in any industry they wanted who have like 600 followers and they go to cons all the time. So you really don't have to have any kind of following at all. It helps, but like at the end of the day, people are going to see you and they're not really going to associate social media.
Sometimes I think if I didn't have a social media following, I don't know if I would make a lot of money at cons. Because I'm like, yeah, you see them at cons and like beautiful
Yeah.
artwork. I don't have that much influence with my art, to be honest. Like, it's cute, it's chibi, but like, if I didn't have a following, I don't know if people would buy from me, to be honest.
It's hard to say because I am one that has been so slow growing on social media. I've been on there since somewhere in the early 2010s, and I literally just broke 10K this year. And granted, I had 45,000 on TikTok, and that happened very quickly, but I also haven't been posting to TikTok. YouTube is also slow growing. I'm on the cusp of 5K. Again, like I feel like I do well enough at conventions, and sure, it helps because I have a lot of people who come up and be like, oh, we watch your vlogs, and I give people a sticker who watch my vlogs. There's a reward, especially if you're giving tips, to have people come up and be like, oh, I love your advice and stuff. I started tabling because of you. But you don't have to have that. You literally can just display your stuff and let it speak for itself.
I realized when vending at conventions, like naturally, I think if I wasn't doing artist alley, I don't know if I would follow like specific artists to like keep up with them. I think I would be more of, oh, if I see them at a con and I like their stuff, I'll buy from them. And I feel like I've noticed that too sometimes if it's not like people who watch like my vlogs or whatnot. It's just people like, oh yeah, I saw you at so and so con and I didn't know you'd be here, but you're here, so I'll buy from you. Talking about Patreon, can you explain what Patreon is for those who might not be familiar with it?
Okay, so Patreon is basically a monthly subscription service to your favorite creatives. A lot of people put out digital content, or I know a lot of webcomic artists will put out early pages, and you pledge a monthly amount, which you can cancel at any time. And then there's some people who have it turned on where you can pledge for an entire year for a certain reward. I use mine as, well, formerly it was a behind the scenes and sticker, pin, and merch box club. You get stickers and stuff every month from me. Well, last year, but that's the concept.
And I understand you kind of mentioned it. You're currently like on monthly Patreon hiatus, based on from what I saw when I looked at your Patreon. And we can talk about this in more detail later on. And with your beginning stages, I currently use Patreon for mostly like content support. As you mentioned, you offered monthly physical products. You kind of touched on this, but what were some of the services or products you offer like on Patreon, like a little bit more detail?
So I had the lowest tier you could do is like $1, and I used that as a tip jar. And then my $5 tier is, I think, my most popular one. That's the one I drive from my Artist Alley vlogs, where people can go and see all of my actual dollar amounts that I've made and spent at conventions. Occasionally, if I'm on my game, I will have other behind the scenes content if I feel like there's anything worthy of sharing. And then I have my $8 sticker club, where you get stickers usually based around a theme. And then I stick to the theme for the other physical merch tiers. So then I have an enamel pin club. Then there's a pin and sticker club where you get all of those things. And then there's a merch box tier that was $35 where you get all those things plus a couple of bonus things.
And what made you decide to start a monthly Patreon?
I think I always liked the idea of sharing something extra with people who were really, really invested in me and my process and my stuff. I was really like mentally ahead of my time, and I just didn't like start until the last couple of years. But I had Patreon in like 2016 or 17.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm grandfathered in. I don't have to pay all of the fees that you have to now, though the fees we will touch on these
Wow.
are also, yeah. So it's really nice, and I don't want to like completely give it up. Just being able to give people a little something extra. So I did have, I think, a sticker and postcard club prior to the pandemic, and I had like 2 patrons, and they were amazing. During the pandemic, I stopped it, and then I was like, well, I could kind of probably pick this back up. And then I had a lot of momentum with TikTok and was able to start that. And then I started with a sticker club, and I ran that for, I think, a year and a half before I was like, I want to do more and got really ambitious and then regretted it.
And as mentioned previously, you're pretty much on hiatus with your monthly products. What prompted that break?
That was definitely the numbers, looking back and seeing that everything that I was investing in was a drain. It's something really difficult to keep up with. And I've been either on the cusp of or deep into a creative burnout for the last several years. And having to show up every single month, which happens so fast, like those weeks go by so fast when you have to give them something new and already have those pins and stuff in production. I was falling behind, and it became a sore spot. And it was like almost shame to even look at Patreon. I'm like, I'm not delivering on the things that I'm promising them. So then I feel like I have to over deliver. And then it just kind of digs me deeper into the hole. Hopefully the hiatus, I'm hoping, will end in July. I have a concise plan, and I just need to get my ducks in a row before I turn it back on.
I can understand how that can be very like exhausting because you're also like thinking of a lot of other things outside of your Patreon, and Patreon's not your specific like focus. But then, yeah, especially when money's involved and you have like certain promises, I can understand why that can be a little stressful. I guess before, what would have been the ideal like process of preparing your monthly Patreon rewards? Like, I guess, was your last one like November or?
Well, technically I had January. I
Okay.
haven't delivered those rewards yet because I'm still working out some things. I had the last pin had put into production like 3 times. The process prior, ideally, was 3 months out, right? I knew in January of 2023 the whole theme for the year. It was rainbow based. Every different month was a different color based on whatever inspired me from that color. For example, January was red. It was strawberry cheesecake. And I had that pin and February's pin in production in early December, I believe.
Mm.
So I had already designed it. I had the deco stickers ready to go for the sticker club. I would do a deco sticker sheet and then I would do a die cut sticker. So I had 4 or 5 different pieces of merch. So I had all that stuff ordered prior to January for 2 months. So ideally, it would have been like a rolling every 2 or 3 months. I would have 2 months worth of things. And I had a buffer that I was like, cool, I have this time to figure out the next couple of months. And con season started in March for me. It just kind of was like, oh God, now it's March and I haven't put any of this stuff in production. So it kind of kept that pace throughout the year. So,
It's funny because I remember my 2023 goal was to start a monthly Patreon. I wanted to be like, oh, like there's a new pin design per month. And I remember when I was researching like pin club ideas, I would look at yours or like, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, like Burduyan and like
mm-hmm.
even like Blush Sprout because like you guys like seemed like you were on top of like your game. I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna be able to do this. I wasn't sure how to like think ahead of like certain pin clubs. And I think it was just so stressful because I did want it to be specifically like original design. I this was also the time where I didn't really want to do too much fan art, but I was like
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I can plan out a year, so I just never did it. It's like it's 2024.
Yeah,
There's no pin club.
I think having it planned out for the year is the way to go. And my problem was I did have it planned out for the year, but all of my ideas were half baked. I would get down to the wire and have to like crunch out this idea and not be super pleased with it, feel like I'm under delivering and still I'm out all this money. Shipping those rewards, once you set a number for that tier, the price for that tier, you cannot go in and change it. And I don't understand why. Literally
Oh.
every other subscription service in existence you can. You have to delete that tier, make a new tier, and encourage people to move over. I'm like, what?
Oh
People
my
will not do
God.
that. And that's something I'm going to have to face because a lot of my tiers are going away. They're not very well set up for fulfillment of physical things. It's mostly like a digital goods. Like that's really what their bread and butter is at Patreon. They don't allow you to be like, okay, well, this is the price of the tier. And then there's an extra charge for shipping. You have to lump it all in together. So shipping costs have been rising over the last few years. And my pin club tier is set at $15 shipped. So I'm in here basically selling pins for $10 a piece. And I would only order 50 pins, which is the minimum quantity you can order for pins. You're sending them out for $4 or $5. So, I mean, there's not a lot of profit to be made for one. But I think just the not being able to like, account for inflation and adjust those tiers at your will, like that's rough.
I didn't realize that about Patreon. I can imagine that's very frustrating because when I would look at everyone's price tiers, I was even considering like, how do you guys make money? Because I was like, $15 per month, like that's like one pin, but then there's like no shipping involved and then like tax and all of that.
Uh-huh.
And then it's like you're not even, well, I guess now since you were grandfathered in, Patreon doesn't get like a percentage from you, I think.
They do. So they
Oh, okay.
have, I have it written down here. I pay a processing fee for payments. I pay a platform fee, which is, I think it's just a lower platform fee. Like there's not a monthly charge or something. Processing fee is about 3%, and then the platform fee is 5% approximately. Like I don't know if that's the real number because it's hard to tell. But then when you're paying out into your PayPal, there's a PayPal transfer fee. So it's a like there's a good chunk of money. Like if I'm making, for example, $800 on Patreon gross, then I'm paying like 70 or $80 in just fees. So you're losing almost $100, and then on top of producing physical goods, like it's rough.
Yeah, and I know some, I guess, like bigger artists, they do have, like, maybe some of them have, like, their own website, and then that's where they get their monthly, like, subscription or income, so then they can avoid Patreon fees. But then it's hard when you're just starting out because at least Patreon, which is kind of like how I view it with Kickstarter and why I still do my major pre orders on Kickstarter versus doing it on my own website, is because they can also provide some traffic, I feel. I don't know if Patreon's the
Hmm.
same, especially with pin clubs, but and I think because people are so they're more comfortable with like, oh, Patreon. I don't know how Patreon is with like let's say if you're not able to deliver, are they like on the like customer side?
I have never actually experienced that. So it's not quite like Etsy where, somebody can go. Usually it's just directly from customer to me, right? So they'll reach out to me like, "Hey, I didn't receive this." And 99% of the time it got sent back to me for some reason and I just resend it, which is more money out of my pocket. But I don't actually know what their policy is. That's a good question. I haven't had anybody reach out about January rewards because I did tell them like it's going to be a minute, but they're coming. Like if you paid me in January, you're going to get your stuff. But I think really the worst that can happen is you lose that patron and they leave you like a nasty exit survey. I haven't had anybody reach out via Patreon support.
Yeah, I know, like, as we know, when chargebacks happen on your website, I don't know if you use Shopify, but I know Shopify
Mm-mm.
typically sides with the customer, which fair enough because, yeah, you don't want them scamming, but there are some customers who scam. And I know for Kickstarter, though, I think they always side with the creator because there's like this very specific artist I won't name, but they have like this Eat a Bag Kickstarter. They did like a lot of money, or they made a lot of money on that Kickstarter, but I think they ended up like just taking the money. If you look at their comments, I think this Kickstarter was like a couple years ago, but a lot of people either still haven't received their Ita bags or when they did receive the Ita bag, it was like very poor quality or they didn't even receive like everything that they pledged for. And this
Mm-hmm.
person just would not respond to their emails. If you go on their Instagram, apparently they would delete those comments and they ended up making another Kickstarter account to do more Eat a Bag Kickstarter campaigns. The only person who got a refund was this person who did a review on YouTube, and because they like were complaining about it like publicly, they got a refund apparently. But like everyone else, like I don't think they got their money
Oh,
back.
kind of on that topic, something that I do have to address, and I haven't done this yet because I haven't like put it into motion yet. But basically, what I plan to do is have the $5 tier for digital content and behind the scenes, and then the sticker club. Like everything else is going away. And I do have people who are pledged to those other tiers who've pledged for the year and they haven't been like fulfilled for the year. So I guess this is a situation where if the creator was dishonest, they would take to Patreon support and they would have to like make a whole deal out of it. I'm trying to be at least honest and go to these people personally and be like, hey, this is what's happening. You still have X amount in unfulfilled rewards. Like I can offer you either like a gift card for the shop or I can give you a refund. Like that's that. Like I probably should look into Patreon's terms of service and stuff for that specific situation. But I feel like it might not happen enough that they don't have anything about it. So I don't know. We'll have to find out.
I forgot that there was that option to pledge like annually rather than get charged monthly, so that's a lot to consider too.
Yeah, one of them is a merch box tier too, and I think they only got
Oh,
like three or four, and I'm like, oh god, that was hundreds of dollars. Every single one of my patrons has been incredible and understanding, and every time I'm like, hey, like I'm late on this, they've always been like, take your time. We understand you're literally doing all of these things. Like at least there's that level of transparency. I've always tried to be transparent, but some people are just jerks.
would you say that someone should have some sort of following if they want to start a monthly Patreon?
Yes. Like, unlike the Artist Alley situation, you absolutely want to have some kind of involved community on social media because otherwise, you did ask this earlier and we didn't get to touch on it, but Patreon does not promote for you. You cannot just go to patreon.com and like browse the creators. There's no browse feature. You have to know exactly who you're looking for and type them in or find them on social media. So it is 100% creator driven traffic. You want to have people who are literally begging you for stuff, basically, if you're going to put out any kind of physical goods, let alone digital goods. But if you're doing anything interesting that people ask a lot of questions about, like, oh, I can turn this into like $5 behind the scenes content or something like that. And like the people who really want that information not for free are going to go to your Patreon and they're going to pledge for it. But if you're literally like, if you're a brand new Instagram account and you're like, I want to start a sticker club, might not be a good idea.
Especially if you're just new, like you mentioned, you need to have some sort of community and establish yourself first because why would someone want to spend on you monthly, even if it's just $1, when they don't know what they're
Hmm.
going to get or they don't know you because it's still $1. Like they can support like other people, but it's just if they don't really know you that well, you need to have that sense of trust prior to dealing with all of that finances. Given that Patreon can provide some stability in a career path that isn't so, I'm sure it can appeal to a lot of artists, but it doesn't mean it's good for everyone. What type of businesses, more so related to those in the art community or even characteristics, do you feel would not benefit from having a monthly product club on Patreon?
Because it is monthly and you have to show up for these people who are literally giving you their money, if you have any kind of struggle with self-discipline, like this is not for you because that time goes by fast. As I mentioned, I think I'm getting better. I really feel like this year I'm getting more organized and on top of things. But like if you experience any kind of burnout easily, especially creative burnout, or if you struggle with that self discipline, like maybe work on that first. I'm looking in a mirror as I'm saying these things. If you're making content for social media already and that's doing well and you have that consistency, you could easily translate that into Patreon, even if you're just doing digital goods to start. And then if you find that momentum and you find that rhythm, like then you can consider the physical goods, but you just have to know yourself really well before you jump into it. Once you get it going and it starts to build, if anything happened and these people were not understanding, though I doubt, that could be a huge source of income that's gone. It's a small percentage of my income, but like I have not had that for the most of the year. Luckily, I haven't missed it. I'm getting to a point where I'm like, in a long drive period between cons where I'm like, man, I could really use that Patreon money right now, but that's a me problem. So you just have to know yourself, know your schedule, know what you're capable of. And if you can push that a little bit, then try out Patreon.
What's something you wish you knew before starting your monthly Patreon?
Something I wish I knew before I started was like how ambitious I was going to be with it and like to know my limits and maybe to have planned a little bit better to build on all of those tiers to get from the sticker club to the pin club and not just do it all at once and hope for the best. Because it did grow like in the first couple of months that I had it in 2022 or 2021. It grew pretty quickly in the first couple of months. I think it went from, I don't know, like 20 sticker club patrons to like 60 at one point. That was really overwhelming. So just to know like how fast it was going to overwhelm me to the point where like it was going to make me stumble and it snowballed into now hiatus. If I had any kind of foresight, then I probably would have like cooled it a little bit or maybe started it later or just did the $5 behind the scenes stuff.
That's fair. I feel like when I was considering having a pin club, I think that's also when I realized like, okay, I'm being too ambitious and I can't think of what to do for the entire year, so I'm not going to start it, which also could be a bad thing. But you have like all these ideas, but then when it comes to putting it into practice and then when con season happens or like you have all these new products, it's kind of hard to keep that momentum too.
You're doing just Patreon, like it's okay to take that time. But when you're literally doing your own products for conventions and you're doing conventions and you're doing social media and you're doing YouTube and a sticker business, there's so much going on that happens every day that it's hard to stop and be like, wait, it's the 27th of May and I haven't even thought about what I'm doing for June yet.
So often as we get into business as an artist or not, it's very important to diversify our income streams in this very unpredictable career path. And clearly you're doing just that on top of vending and Artist Alley. Again, running a monthly Patreon and then vlogging at cons, you also run a sticker production business called Spooky Stickers. How did that come to be?
Yeah. So this is like one of my favorite stories because it was totally by accident. This was 2018. I had just gotten into a podcast some of you may recognize, Crime Junkie. They were pretty new. I was listening with Ryan one night and doodling on the couch, and they have this saying called full body chills, like when something really intense happens in the story and they're like, oh my God, I got full body chills. And I drew a doodle. I drew a doodle for them and then I digitized it and I posted it. And they lost their minds. They're like, this is our first piece of fan art. Like, they got in touch with me and they're like, can we like make stickers out of this? I'm like, sure. Like, I have a little tiny silhouette portrait over here. I can make you some stickers if you want. And she's like, yeah, just like let me know what the cost. And I had to do the math and figure out, okay, for printing and for paper and for shipping, like how many stickers can I fit on a sheet? This is like the only kind of math that I can do is business related math. Like, I figured it all out and they were my first customers as Spooky Stickers. And Spooky Stickers didn't even come to be until a little bit later because I was part of some zines at the time and they were looking for somebody to do sticker sheets. I was like, well, I just kind of like pulled these numbers out for this other people if you guys want to make stickers with me. And for a long time it was a word of mouth thing, and people would just email me their orders. I had like a little tracker of like, okay, this is how many orders I can take at a time. Last June, my bestie and I launched the website, spookystickers.site. It has just kind of taken off. That's business number two.
And I know you kind of mentioned that you started a website back in June, but for your business, is it more of a passive type of business where you'll fulfill the sticker order if it comes along like on your website, or do you actively promote it as much as like Lay Spirit Designs?
Spooky Stickers is something that I don't want to go away. Spooky and Spirit are literally siblings. They're brother and sister. Like they each have their own little caricature. I want Spooky Stickers to grow and evolve just as much as I want Lay Spirit to evolve. So there is a Spooky Stickers Instagram account, spooky.stickers. I tell people at conventions, I actually this year started sponsoring artist alleys locally in Fresno. So they would get a goodie bag that's Lay Spirit branded, but inside, along with like a little postcard that talks about both businesses, they get a sample pack for the stickers. I am ramping up efforts to get the word out because it's something that I really believe in, being able to serve the community. This is a great thing for people starting out to start with, because you could literally order one sticker, literally just one sticker from me. I'm hoping someday that this is going to be a form of passive income that I can hire employees and train them and they can do the fulfillment and all that stuff. And I can step away and focus on my spirit, but still have a hand in both worlds.
Yeah, I wish I knew about that when I first started. I'm like, why am I ordering 50 pieces of stickers? It's ridiculous, and I don't even know if it's gonna sell. But yeah, I think that's definitely a great resource if you're just starting, because it does cost like a lot of money if you don't have like a silhouette or like a Cricut machine, and then you have to buy like the materials, and especially with that learning curve of, because I've never made stickers on my own, but I hear the things of like the cutter is like not calibrated and it's cutting everywhere, or like I guess if the lamination's been applied wrong. So it's nice having that as like a local option.
Literally let me suffer for you to make these stickers. Yes, these are temperamental machines. Somehow I don't have that many problems with them. And I've got the laminating thing down to a science. And at the moment, all of my prints are outsourced with the UPS store that I used to work at, because they have a beautiful large format printer. I don't know if you can see, did buy an Epson Eco Tank. So I am hoping in the near future to start doing some of the non-waterproof stickers in-house. I just have to figure out the print settings. But yeah, dealing with printers, honestly, I hate it. And I don't know why I'm doing this to myself, investing in that portion of it. Yeah, so I have somebody else doing the printing and I'm doing the cutting and the laminating and taking all of the worry away. Like I literally have a couple of rush orders due by the end of this week that are printing right now, and they will be hopefully in the hands of these people by Friday.
Do you do like con pickups? Like let's say if you happen to intersect, perfect.
You can go on spookystickers.site, and under about, I think there is a convention schedule post that shows my upcoming conventions. And you just have to, in your order, be like, hey, I'm going to be at this event. Even if you're not tabling, like if you're just going to be at that event, just tell me like, hey, I want to pick these up here. It's free to pick up at conventions.
So how do you stay organized with all of this, like your sticker production business and like all of your other businesses, especially if you're the main person doing it all?
I rely a lot on Google stuff. So I have a Drive folder, I drop my files in and I send that off to my printer. When a sticker order comes in, obviously it's organized on the website. It notifies me via email when I get a new order, and I can like quickly scan it and be like, okay, they have this kind of lamination, there's digital proofs required, and they have a rush fee, and I'll put that over into Google Tasks, and that's literally on the side of my email. So I can see at a glance how many sticker orders I have open. The Lay Spirit stuff, I don't know, it kind of all gets mixed in. I have calendars and planners, and most of it is just in my head. I don't know. Magic, I guess. I literally have no idea how I'm doing all of this. I'm at least trying to use Notion. I know a lot of people like to use Notion, but that's more for like broad stroke stuff. Like, okay, this is what I want to accomplish. Like, this is what I have on the radar for this year. I did mention I'm ramping up a lot of promotional things for Spooky Stickers. So like I'm trying out social media ads. I'm hoping to sponsor some artists one of these days. Like all that is like, okay, Q1, this is what we're doing. Q2, this is what we're doing, so on and so forth. And the same goes for Lay Spirit. Funny enough, I've been really on top of all the spooky sticker stuff, but Lay Spirit is like, you've got a couple of weeks to catch up on.
So if you feel comfortable, what is the general ratio of your business income?
So this is roughly based on last year's numbers. Conventions are 50%. Like that's just how it is. The stickers are about 20 to 30%,
Oh,
which I love. The shop is like 15, and then YouTube, Patreon, other miscellaneous things is like 5%, if not lower. Ideally, those would be flipped. I want to do less events. I want to have more passive income and be here more and be available for my personal life more. So I don't want to tell a family member like, oh, I can't come to this event that you have hung your hat on and are really looking forward to because I have an event that I booked like 6 months ago. I don't want to stop doing events. And at the same time, I'm like, but I want to do more out of state ones. Ideally, like I want to be able to rely online and know that, okay, even if I do need to take this year off of cons, like I'm okay.
no, I feel you with that because in my ideal situation, I would like to only be able to do like big cons or conventions that I personally want to attend or like vend at, and then primarily do online sales. And then that's also why I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel a little bit more, and then Patreon too, which is a little bit more like digital content specific, so it doesn't require as much like, or there's no physical like
Good.
like production at all. That would be my ideal situation because like you, I love conventions, but especially with what I'm learning this year, like I kind of had to deal with like, oh, I didn't get into like some of the cons that I did last year. Like there's so many cons, it's so difficult to get in, and like some of them aren't even like amazing numbers yet. Like why are the
Mm-hmm.
apps capped? Like why is it so difficult? Like it's a regular con. There's no reason
Yeah.
for it to be this difficult.
With the cons that you rely on, like sometimes they'll have a reoccurring like time of year that they happen, but like this year, Midsummer Scream had no idea until they were talking about it at the end of last year's show. Like it's the same weekend as San Diego Comic Con, and like I don't know if there's a lot of overlap in the horror community with the Comic Con community because like if you're a horror fan, you're going specifically to those things for that thing. And I feel like Comic Con is more general audience, but it's still scary because it's like, is that con going to be worth it? And I didn't do an artist booth. That's the only con so far that I'm doing a vendor booth, and that's a $900 booth for a 10 by 10. And that's a
Oof.
lot. Like that's literally
Yeah.
like three times the cost of most artist alley tables. Am I gonna make this worth it? But it's a risk. It's the risk you have to keep taking, and sometimes you're just not gonna make the money that you did the year previously. And then of course with the economy, it's like you just never know.
It's brutal because I remember I missed like a few like events last year, unfortunately, because of I was too eager to sign up for night markets. They didn't do super well for me. Like they were okay.
Oh,
And now this year I'm like, okay, I'll just do two night markets and then like just a few cons. But now I'm like, am I gonna be financially okay? Like I think I'll be okay, but I don't think it'll be the same as like last year. But it
yeah.
there's so many like unpredictable like factors, and it like a lot of it is really like out of our control too.
That's the scariest part. Like you could be doing everything right and the economy is just like sorry for your loss and just crying over your top ramen.
So moving on into our semi speed round slash miscellaneous round, what's the biggest challenge you've noticed as an artist alley vendor?
The competition, literally. Like this is my own problem, but like I never really know when things are open for application, which is half the reason why I don't do out of state stuff because I don't know. It's not on my radar. But yeah, it's the competition because sure you can get in one year and not get in the next year, and that could be from jury or that could be from speed. Like there's too many factors and there's too many people eager to do this thing. We make it look too good.
It's funny. I was talking to June, like JYK Doodles, and even like Lindsay, like Singles Food about this. It's like, are we the problem? It's like us with our artist alley content. I think we're the problem. I'm complaining about this, but I know we're the problem.
And I've had that conversation with Ryan literally after we revealed the booth. I'm like, I'm changing the game, actively changing the game. I know people are going to take inspiration from this, but like, who am I benefiting? Literally nobody if I keep it to myself because I'm not even benefiting myself if I don't do this thing. It's literally a double-edged sword.
What's your favorite convention or event you've done and why?
This has to be SAC Anime. I know I'm Fresno based and SAC Anime is a 3 hour drive for us, but I feel like that's my home show because that is the show that I show up for. When we displayed the new booth, Ryan was like, we have to do it for SAC. Like we came home from AX Chibi and we're already planning it. And he's like, if we're doing this, it has to be ready for SAC because we have a reoccurring bunch of fans who come to see us every single time. It's technically a 3 times a year show, but I don't do the spring one. They come and see us every time and they have been for years. And I've built that relationship over the last almost 10 years. That is my favorite show, hands down. I love the way it's run. I love the people who run it, and it's always a good vibe. Everybody just is high energy and amazing, and I could literally go on and on about how great it is.
I've always wanted to vend at SAC ever since like your vlogs, and I hear so many good things about the con, and even like I heard staff is great. Like I see the Facebook page, like staff is very
Mhm.
responsive. I think out of all the cons that I'm aware of, especially like the bigger cons, like I feel like they're pretty much on it. So I'm like, one of
Oh
these
yeah.
days.
I hope so. Did you apply for summer?
I did. I think tomorrow, right,
Okay.
is when results come out.
I actually have no idea.
Because I kept
I need to
checking like the
check.
Facebook. I just know it's like end of May. So when it comes to Artist Alley, what do you invest in and what are you cheap about?
I literally thought until this last year that I'm like, I don't need branded packaging of any kind. No, that is the one thing that you want to invest in. I have to actually order more bags. People get so
Yeah,
excited when I give them this.
they look so
And
good.
I think Bandage Brigade is the one that I saw a couple years ago having the custom bags. And then I have these for small orders.
That's so
Cute little like,
cute.
I still am trying to work out a manufacturer to do the incentive freebie bag because the ones that I planned for SAC Anime were not the right size, and they gave them away as freebies and they still went over really well. People are like, I don't understand what's wrong with this. I'm like, I do because I'm the artist. Packaging is a huge game changer, and the thing that I'm cheap about, enamel pins. I hate spending that much money up front. So if I'm not doing a Kickstarter, I have to like really justify what I'm spending, and I will only buy the minimum order quantity. But with the exception of like my best selling pins, like I will only order 50.
No, that's fair because I used to be like the type of person where it's like, well, not for enamel pins specifically, but it's like, oh, if I order more, the unit price is gonna be less. It does not matter. Like, just if you can
It
only
doesn't
afford the
matter.
minimum order quantity, just get the minimum order
Yeah.
quantity. Yeah, I also agree about packaging because I think in some aspects I'm a little bit stingy with packaging, especially if it's like me shipping out an order. I'll just have like branded sticker, plop it on there, and like I'm fine. But I think for conventions, having branded packaging is such a big deal because I've noticed like a big difference with that now that I have my like free tote bags with like $50 purchase. I kind of treat that as like little billboards because a lot of people I heard from like customers were like, "Oh, I didn't know you were going to be here until I saw your bag," or like with someone with like your logo on their bag. And I was like, yeah, it's like it's so
Mm-hmm.
helpful, like just for advertising reasons too.
Yeah. No, there was at Level Up one of my mutuals who I had no idea was there until I saw their bags going by. I was like, oh, that's super cool. Like, I didn't know they were here. And there's something so rewarding about seeing people walking by with your bags. And I'm like,
What's your controversial artist alley opinion?
just because somebody else is doing something and it's working for them does not mean it's going to work for you. And in that same vein, steal like an artist and don't just copy other people's ideas. Please, for the love of God, be original in some aspects. Like if you see something that you want to replicate it. Don't just be like, oh, here you go. But like in a more professional aspect, like take notes on what you like about it. Take from multiple sources. So it's not like, oh, they're copying that one specific artist and just make it your own. Like find a way to stand out because if everybody looks the same, it's just a monotonous blob of art and you want to stand out. When I was starting back after the pandemic doing cons in the early 2020s, I had kind of shifted into more of a pink booth. And there's a lot of pink booths. Your booth is pink. So I was like, well, okay, well, I don't want to be completely pink. So I brought the green in, and the green really stands out because not a lot of people do the green, especially the green and pink. Take what you like about certain things and then make it your own. Like, don't just straight up copy people because that's boring.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that because I think in my mind I was like, see, we both have pink booths, but I feel like if people were to look at our booth, they know it's not the same as like the next
Yeah,
door neighbor pink booth because there's still
yeah.
some different aspects of it. I was talking to Gary about this when we were at Fanime. There are a few artists where maybe this is like a branding thing because at some point, like all of the art styles kind of mesh together. There's only so much you can do with like
Mm-hmm.
anime looking artwork unless you have something that like helps you pop. Yeah, like Chris Kaiko has like a red tablecloth now because like that helps him like stand out a little bit along with like his art style is also very different. A lot of the art booths can kind of mesh around, especially if they all have like black tablecloth, print wall. It's really hard to stand out. So it's like just trying to
Yeah.
figure out just like one little thing, like maybe put lights on your display or put lanterns or something.
One thing that I'm always concerned about, and this is based on one of my artist friends who deals a lot with confusion of source. So this is specifically with art styles, but this can go with booths too. So like if your booth looks so much like somebody else's booth, if you and I were next to each other, people would know we're not the same booth. But I have been in a situation where I was right next to another pink booth and one of my mutuals walks up and they're like, "Oh, I didn't know you got two booths." So I was like, "No, that is not me over there." Like that's really what prompted a lot of this to like shift away from it. But if you can't stand out from the people you're copying, then you're driving business to them too. Yes, there is a healthy and friendly community in the artist alley community, but there is also competition for money because this is most of our livelihoods. If two people are doing something so similar and people don't know who's who, they'll go to whoever they know the best. And whether or not that's you, like you're not doing yourself any favors by trying to be somebody else.
So typically I ask team fanny pack or money box. However, like I know you use a money box from what I remember in your vlogs. What made you go in that direction versus a fanny pack?
Quickness, I guess, speed of being able to count back cash because again, retail experience, I'm used to a register. However, if I do start doing any conventions by myself, I would probably use a fanny pack just because I don't have extra eyes.
What is your most popular product?
This is the one I was talking about that I will order like 200 of at a time. This is
Cute.
my glow in the dark cozy Mothman pin, and his eyes glow in the dark. I think I've done about 1,000 of these pins at this point. Like
Oh,
I literally
dang.
just restocked 200 of them in like November, and I just had to put in another restock like a month ago. They're like my best seller on Etsy, and that's the only pin. I follow your advice. I bring 5 to 10 of like my lower sellers, and then like 30 if I can fit them of my best sellers. Like that's the one that I always bring 30 of.
Yeah, because I remember you'd always mention him in your vlogs. So I'm like, I want to know what he looks like. And on the other hand, what's your least popular product?
My November 2023 pin. Outside of fulfilling Patreon rewards, I've sold him one time. It was at Level Up, and the customer was like deciding between him and another pin. And I was like, well, if you want, you can buy that one and be the first person to ever buy him. And she was like, okay.
No way,
But
he's
like,
so cute
I
though.
know. And I figured if he was at cons, people would resonate with him, but they haven't. And I like, for anybody who doesn't know, when Ryan and I went to Japan last October, we did like a very quick trip and we found this teeny tiny little bakery near our Airbnb, and it was almost to closing, and he ran in there and he's like, there's this koala bread, and he brought it back with us, and he on his Instagram stories like bit into it and it was custard filled, and I was like, that is so cute, like I have to pin that, and nobody cares.
Oh my god.
But he's
I'll
available
I'll buy
online.
one. I want
Oh
to know.
my god,
I'll
you know
I'll
what
ask you where that koala bear is to in Japan. What has been your best investment in your business and why?
So my best investment has been my time. And that is something that not everybody can afford because some people, and there's literally nothing against the people who are doing this. If you're still working full time or even part time, like good for you, make that bread. I think my burnout started when I was working my last job because I would come home so mentally exhausted that I didn't have any creative energy to do literally anything. And I was still doing events at this time and running an online shop. Being able to quit that job at the end of 2020 and do this entirely full time has been the best investment because I've been able to do so many things. If I was just relying on conventions and online shop, like I would probably have to go back to the workforce. But because I've been able to do YouTube and do Patreon and the sticker business, like it's really changed the game for me. And I know for a fact that even if things got tough, like it would be a really, really hard decision for me to go back to the workforce, even part-time, because I would be cutting out probably YouTube and probably conventions at the very least, if not scaling back the sticker business to like capping orders again.
Yeah, I noticed the difference when I used to work in corporate versus now that I think what it's about to be 2 years I've been doing this full time. The fact that we can travel like when we want to, it's like you were able to go to Japan. I don't think I'd be able to just freely do that if I was working in corporate because it's like, oh, I have to save up PTO or oh, I need to
Mm-hmm.
save up PTO, which I used to do so that I can like do events on the weekend and like actually have enough time to, okay, arrive the day before and set up for that con and then maybe arrive the day a day later. But then after that, you have to work your corporate job. And then I didn't think about using or having time as a good investment because I think that just wasn't usually like my automatic answer. But I do like that perspective because that's also something that you can't just get back, really. What's your biggest business insecurity?
Not being remembered. That has always been my thing. And luckily, I do have a background in graphic design for packaging and stuff, but like I've always felt that I've over packaged things. Like, I don't know if you can tell, like the tote bags, they have belly bands. My lanyards are packaged with stickers, and I have my socials and stuff on the back of my sticker books. My branding is everywhere, and I've even incorporated it into the design of my die cut stickers. I think this is a social media thing. This doesn't mean that I'm right, but I feel the way that I feel because of the way social media is. But just because it has taken me so long to grow on Instagram specifically, like I feel like I'm not memorable or my artwork is not memorable. So like that's the insecurity. But I guess like I'm working out well for it because I'm over packaging things and like you literally can't forget me now.
No, I think that's a good thing to overpackage because I feel like a lot of people in Artist Alley underpackage, and that's also
Mm-hmm.
why if you buy something from someone and they don't minimum like include a business card, I don't know where I got it from, to be honest,
Right.
because especially if they don't sign like the art piece, or if they buy a sticker and then their username's not on the sticker, like even if they put it
Mm-hmm.
like let's say on the back, if it's not on the actual sticker, I'm not going to remember where I got that from, because that's also why I do that with my stuff, because let's be honest, like there's so many chibis like in Artist Alley
Yeah.
that if I didn't have like even like forget the social media following, I could easily be like mixed up with another artist. Like I get that all the time where people are like, "Oh, I saw your Evolutions pins like at Level Up." I never vended at Level Up. It's like there's so many, like there's only so much you can do with like a chibi evolution, and like I don't blame them. So I think that's also why
Yeah.
having like packaging, even if it's as minimal as like let's say you can't afford to have your like your bags printed, you can easily get like stickers, or even like if you have a
Mm-hmm.
thermal label printer, just print it out, put your
Oh yeah.
username, put it on like your packaging, and like no one packages like enough. I think it's they need to work on branding. It's like
No,
that's like
I
my
fully
controversial
agree.
artist alley opinion. When did you first feel successful with your business, and what does that word mean to you?
Definitely in 2020 on TikTok. I don't know if I could say I was going viral, but I was doing numbers, driving sales, and I felt secure enough to quit that job. Success to me means that I can sustain working for myself. I was so badly traumatized by my last job that like that's the other half of the reason why I don't want to return to the workforce, because I have too many trust issues with employers. If I can maintain myself and I can maintain my finances and grow a little bit, even if I'm, not saving money and I don't own a house and I don't go on like 5 vacations a year, like as long as I can maintain what I'm doing and not have to ask for financial help, that's success to me.
It's interesting because I feel like with a lot of other artists, because we're surrounded by people who have that similar lifestyle of being able to sustain ourselves and having like our own business, that I wouldn't say that it feels ordinary, but it doesn't feel like special. But then when I hang out with like some friends or with family members, and then, they know how I run my business or I'm able to sustain myself, and then like maybe I can go on vacation like minimum 1 year. They're like, "Oh my God, like you're able to do that, like you're able to travel, like you have that time freedom." Sometimes it's really easy to forget. It's pretty amazing like being able to
Yeah.
run your own business and yeah, like sustain yourself.
It is. No, it truly is. Like I totally candidly, like I run things pretty tight. I'm usually a pretty frugal person, but it's like on a whim. A couple weeks ago, we were supposed to go to Boston and like we couldn't get on the flight because we were flying standby. The plane was full. So we were like, okay, well, Ryan took a whole week off and he has PTO and he has to be mindful of his time. He's like, I don't want to just stay at home. Like what else could we do? And I was like, well, I don't want to spend a whole lot of money. I don't want to go for multiple days because we had already paid for the Airbnb and we were visiting friends. We were going to do like specific things that wasn't going to break the bank. We ended up going to Disneyland for a day. And I had points from doing cons to get a hotel. And, the fact that I can be like, okay, well, I can spend a couple $100 and go and do this fun thing is amazing. Like, not everybody, even with a full time job, can do that, whether it's a time or a financial issue. Sure, if something astronomical happened or some emergency, like I might be worried a little bit, but like as it is right now, like I'm okay, even with a convention not for another almost 2 months away.
Yeah, and that fact too, with, I guess, like with our business, the fact that you don't need to have a con every so often, like the fact that we can be picky with certain conventions or events that we want to do is so much of a privilege because I remember when I was first starting, I mean, luckily I had my corporate job, but at least to sustain my business, I felt the need to do at least like one event a month or even like two events a month. But now, like, I mean, sure, if I can get another con like a month, that would be great, but like, I don't need to.
It is. It is. Like, really, the only thing I have to worry about is Ryan's time and if he's available and if he's willing. Because, say I apply for Fanime and I want to make sure that I have another con in May, like, it's going to be tricky to book two events in the same month and hope that I only get into one. Well, if I get into both, like, are you willing to sacrifice a weekend for me? Like, sometimes he has to use his vacation time if I don't know how financially lucrative that event's going to be. I'll offer to pay him if I know that it's going to be good. Like, he gets paid for SAC Anime, but like otherwise I'm like, do you mind taking PTO? Because I don't know how this is going to go. If I was single, if I was single, like I would be singing a different tune because the fact that I have a live-in partner who literally pays for half of everything and also assists me for free most of the time, like that's my situation, and not everybody can do that.
In my case, I'm single, so I can't. I'm like, I'm out here. Are you working on any big projects or new products you'd like to share?
I have a big Kickstarter that I'm going to be doing, and I still need to do the artwork for it, but luckily it's something that'll be quick turnaround. And I've had this idea for like a couple years now. I want to do customizable potion shaker charms where you can open them, you can pick out your vessel, and there's going to be like a bunch of different series of things that you could put in them. And Lay Spirit is me, who's the witch in the woods who projects her spirit into the world to communicate with Periwinkle, the little mushroom boy, and all my other characters. And Ryan is incorporated as the apothecary because he works in a pharmacy in real life. So the dream is, at conventions, I have to figure out how I'm going to do this space-wise, that he runs the apothecary and you go to him and you build your potions. I want to do a Kickstarter because this is one of those things where, yes, I do shaker charms already, but the openable ones I think are a little bit more expensive. And I don't know what designs are going to do well. So I want to just put them out there and see how it does. That way I know what to order and all that stuff. So I'm hoping by the end of June, I will have that launched because I really, really, really want to have them in person for Midsummer Scream.
That's so exciting. I love how you included like some sort of lore because that's also what's missing in like
I
artist
know,
alley,
that's
like
why I'm like, come on,
businesses.
Ashley, you've got all these ideas and you're just sitting on them. Literally, all of my characters have backstory. They have intentions and all this stuff. So Ryan's part of it. He's on the See You Tomorrow banner at the booth. So like he's got to be part of it in more than just that. Other than that, I did just launch on Spooky Stickers the ability to order Stamp Rally cards with me. There's an incentive for that too. So if you order any Stamp Rally cards in your cart, all of your stickers are automatically 15% off.
You're so smart. It's like not only can you get like stickers from you, it's like that could be the sticker prize and then the stamp card.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like I didn't take any business classes ever in my life, and somehow I'm very business minded. I don't know where it comes from.
Like so much great information. Thank you for being a part of this. Where can our
Yeah.
audience find you?
You can find me at lacespiritdesigns.com, at lacespiritdesigns on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, patreon.com/lacespiritdesigns when I get that turned on, and spookystickers.site. And I also have a 25% off coupon for your viewers on Spooky Stickers is Mualcaina 25, and that will not expire. You can literally use that whenever you want. It is one use, so if you use it, it's done, but you can use it until the end of time.
Amazing. I'll have it on the screen and I'll also list it in the description. And I'm glad
Yay!
that you're able to participate. And thank you to everyone listening in. I will see you all in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.